Hello friends, Adam here with FED. With Fire Emblem Path of Radiance coming out on the Nintendo Switch Online, of course, tons and tons of YouTubers are trying their hand at making a Fire Emblem tier list for this game. Now, I don't want to be mean, but I've seen some questionable decisions made on these tier lists that are geared at newer players, trying to help them become better or help them in their own playthroughs and selecting characters and whatever and how to use them. Well, I've seen so many interesting choices that I felt compelled to bring a video from someone who is an expert on not only the series but Path of Radiance in particular. I've played this game too many times to count, mostly on hard mode. I've done multiple runs on Maniac mode as well. But yeah, I've played this game. I've been playing this game since 2006 or whatever, 2007, and a lot, just way too much. So I don't want to say my opinion means more than anyone else's, but I do have a lot of experience. So if you need some help knowing which characters to use or whatever for Path of Radiance, you're in the right place. This is going to be for hard mode, is what we're going to be talking about today. And then after we're done with hard mode, I will show a Maniac tier list and explain some of the differences that I have between the two different difficulties. And I'm doing that because you do have access to Maniac mode if you have your Nintendo Switch Online account and are able to play the English version of Path of Radiance. All you have to do is set up a Japanese account, which isn't hard. Just just Google it, look up how to do it, and you'll be able to play it on Maniac mode in Japanese. Or you can play it using a certain application on your computer, and you can play Maniac mode in English if you're willing to figure that out. That's how I prefer to enjoy it. Anyways, let's get into the tier list. First off, we're going to do hard mode, like I said, and I have just a few tiers. I have 6 here. We have makes the game much easier. These are units who are just almost always deploys, unless you're trying to challenge yourself for some reason or another. It's important to note that the criteria for this tier list, it's pretty loose, but what it breaks down to is, do they make the game easier for you? And then how much so? So first we have, like I said, makes the game much easier is the highest tier we have here. Following that, we have happy to have them. So units that are obviously not the best of the best, but anytime you have them around, you are most likely deploying them. Worth investing. These are characters that start off weak but end up becoming a worthwhile member of your team through either bonus experience or just feeding them kills on any given map. Filler units. So if you have some units who died, or maybe you can't fill out the entire deployment list when you get to a map, I don't know, like Chapter 26 Clash asks you to deploy a bazillion units. So these filler units are good for that. Good for a time is kind of the most difficult characters to tier, so I kind of gave them their own. Is these characters that are so good and important for 1, 2, or 3 chapters, but then otherwise they are just not worth your time. And the final bottom tier, only if you love them. There are going to be a few characters in here. Path of Radiance, especially on hard mode and normal mode, are easy enough that any character can work. Kind of like how most Fire Emblem games, any character is worth using if you like them. So if you really love the characters in only if you love them, they're worth it to you, right? Characters with stats only a mother could love, or you, dear viewer. So let's start with my friend Ike. Ike is he's worth investing. Ike has the problem in Path of Radiance where he is locked to the second worst weapon type, being swords, where he isn't allowed to have a solid 2-range option until the end of the game. There are the magic swords, being the wind sword, storm sword, rune sword, but those don't come till late, and also relies on your magic stat, which Ike doesn't have a great magic stat to begin with. But once he gets going, he's reliable, doesn't really die. He's fairly unkillable. And he is the easiest way to beat the last 2 maps of the game. He gets the best weapon in the game, following Chapter 27. And then he also has access to the best skill combo in the game following Chapter 27 if you want to go that route, that being Wrath and Resolve. That makes Ike 100% worth investing into. If you put some levels into him, he's not going to be spectacular. He's not going to change the world for you, but he will be solid enough. You won't have to worry about him. And then at the end game, he will win the game for you. Boyd, also going to go into worth investing. Our Axe Fighter Bro guy, Boyd here, is similar to Ike, except he has the much better weapon type of axes, meaning he has access to hand axes and the tomahawk and all that, short axes, giving him the ability to attack at range on enemy phase. So his enemy phasing is way better than anything I can do until, again, the last two maps. And he starts off a little weak. He's a bit of a liability. He might die. But if you put some levels into him, he's going to be fine. The only thing to worry about is his speed stat. If he doesn't get a few levels in speed, he's going to fall behind pretty quickly, and you might want to drop him. But as long as he gets those levels in speed, he's going to be pretty solid. You also need to watch out for his strength stat. Shouldn't be an issue. He has a pretty good strength growth. It should go up relatively quickly. But if it doesn't, it's going to lower his speed because of the heaviness of axes. But yeah, definitely, I think he's worth investing to on hard mode for sure. Titania, probably the best unit in the game on hard mode. Makes the game way easier. You could deploy her from start to finish and she will be solid. People will like to point out that she falls off at a certain point or whatever. And by that, they just mean she's not as good as other units that you trained from like level 1 to, to her level. But the fact that she is so much better than every single other unit in your army until then speaks volumes to her usefulness. She will always at least be good, and for the first half of the game, she is the best. Oscar, another Cavalier along with Titania, except he isn't promoted. He makes the game much easier. He has access to lances, so he has the 1-2 range access, which is great. Things you love to see. Javelins are great. Short spears are great. He is high movement, and he is around for just about as much of the game as anyone else, aside from Ike. And I think Titania might be more available than him. I'm trying to think. But he's insanely good. Insanely good. I will say, when you promote him, you get the choice between adding swords, bows, or axes to his weapon list. It's not super important which one you pick, but I guess if you want to do the funny triangle attack thing, you pick bows. It also gives him a niche of using bows against flyers, and there are a few troublesome wyvern knights in the late game. Granted, the bonus damage is only double instead of triple, so it doesn't matter that much, and he starts off with E rank. I know a lot of people just go with axes just to give him another form of 1-2 range and mix up the weapon triangle for him, but I don't think it matters that much. But yeah, he's really good. People also, okay, there's one YouTuber in particular, I'm going to call her out, Danny Doyle. Love her content, love her videos. But one thing she always says when she's talking about Path of Radiance is that she doesn't think dodge tanking is very good. And it drives me up the wall. Because the easiest way to beat the game is to just slap the Oscar and Ike support together. They get the maximum avoid bonus, which is plus 30 avoid. And it's not like they'll never get hit, but it adds so much to their bulk over the course of an enemy phase. It's not about, I need them to dodge every single attack. No, it's about minimizing the amount of times they are going to get hit, thus adding that many attacks to their bulk, to their overall defense and HP. So I think the avoid thing, maybe some people do blow it out of proportion, but I think it is worth having and is very, very good part of his character, having that Earth affinity for that maximum avoid bonus with Ike. And as far as Maniac modes, we'll talk about that later, but as far as Maniac mode goes, that is the easiest way to beat the game, in my humble opinion. All right, Rice. I'm happy to have Reese at all times. There aren't very many just base healers in Tellius. I should say Path of Radiance, that's what we're talking about. You have Riss, you have Mist, and you have Alencia. Those are your 3 healers. 3 isn't very many. And Riss is your only one until chapter 9. And then you get Mist, who is, we'll talk about in a few minutes, but she starts off just way behind anything Riss can do. I like Riss a lot. I'm going to say his name differently every time. I like him a lot for his staff rank. I like promoting him. You can get it early if you really want to for light magic. I bring this up any opportunity I get because I think it's a really cool part of his kit, is that Riss can use arm scrolls to up his staff rank after promotion, which no other character in the game can do. Because you only can use an arm scroll on the weapon that you have equipped, and Riss can equip light magic, which is tied to his staff rank post promotion. And normally you cannot equip staves. So he is the only character in the game who can up his staff rank with an arm scroll, making it much easier to reach those like late game staves like Fortify or the Ashera staff if you're going for that. All right, Shannon is going to be our first character to go in good for a time. Shannon is insanely useful for baiting enemies and also just for killing on player phase when you have him in the early game. For story reasons, he leaves and then doesn't come back until, I believe, chapter 19. It's either 18 or 19. It's 18. And he is less than great then, but he does come with a brave bow and he can use it at base if you recruit him then. The recruitment's kind of annoying because it requires you to use Rolf, and no one likes Rolf. Or maybe you do like Rolf, I don't know. But he's good for when you have him. His provoke skill is kind of funny to put on Archer. It makes it like guaranteed he gets attacked on enemy phase, which is fine in the early game because he doesn't die. He has decent defense, decent HP stat, and also he dodges a lot of stuff. So I like him a lot for when you have him in the early game. Late game, he is kind of bad. He's kind of bad. I think he's like 10 base strength or something, which is fine early game, but late game is horrendously bad. All right, let's look at Gatry. I think Gatry can go in either worth investing or filler, depending on how you view Armor Knights. On hard mode, I view them as less than stellar. I'm going to put him in filler. Initially, I was going to put him in worth investing, but I think I'm going to leave him in filler, just because the movement is such an issue. He'll be a fine combat unit if you train him, but training him is going to be annoying because he's just slower than everyone else, especially on bigger maps. But he does have lance access, and lances are good. We like lances. We like 1-2 range. And having high defense is never a bad thing. So I like having him there. I like having him around if I have space for him, but I don't usually deploy him if I can help it. You could make an argument for him to be good for a time because early game, just like Shannon, he does leave at a certain point. But he comes back early enough and with decent enough bulk and stuff for me to say he's a filler unit instead of just good for the early game. Soren, I'm going to say is worth investing. Soren has the distinction of being your earliest magic unit. Magic is hard nerfed in Path of Radiance compared to the GBA games. The might is low. The effectiveness only being doubled means he doesn't even deal that much extra damage to flying enemies, especially when you consider that wind has like 1 or 2 might. I can't remember. So you double that and you're like, oh, look, we're doing 4 damage or whatever. 4 extra or 2 extra damage. It doesn't mean that much. I do like Soren a lot for Adept. Adept has some, every now and again, he'll kill something he shouldn't have. Not something you can rely on, but it is a cute little quirk of his. The best thing about Soren and the other unpromoted mages is that once promoted, they do get staff access. And like I talked about earlier, there is a severe lack of staff units in Path of Radiance. So Soren can supplement that post-promotion. Other than that, you probably want to switch him off of wind magic, get him on, just have him use fire or thunder, probably thunder magic, just so that has a little more might. I understand it'll slow him down more because his strength is so bad, but I don't know. You can go either way. You can just have him carry multiple different kinds of tomes, I guess, and use the best one for the situation. But yeah, if you invest in him, he's going to be solid. He also has the support with Ike, which you can just kind of keep them together. They have similar movement range, but also the staff access is pretty awesome. All right. Now we have our first only if you love them tier. I know a lot of people love Mia. She's purple hair. She's purple hair lady. People like the purple haired sword girls or sword girls in general in Fire Emblem, which I don't blame you. They're cool. That's all she has going for her. She's fast. She has Vantage, which I guess is like one part of like a Vantage Wrath combo. The issue is she's not always gonna kill with a Vantage Wrath crit in one attack, unless like especially against like paladins or generals. So if she's in Wrath range, she's probably just gonna there's a good chance she'll just die to a counter, even if she uses Vantage. Her stats are just bad. Low strength, uses the worst weapon type in the game of second worst weapon type in the game of swords. Bows being the worst. She is fine if you train her. Like she'll be able to kill an enemy on enemy phase for you semi-reliably if you have to give her a forged weapon or a brave sword or hope for like double crit with like killing edge or something. But she is definitely only if you love them material. I've seen a lot of debates about Ileana versus Soren in the past. People like Ileana because she has an actual strength growth, so she won't be weighed down by heavier books. But Soren has the higher magic stat and speed stat generally is kind of the trade-off. Both are fine. I do like that Ileana starts off with a higher thunder rank, but I think you can invest in either of them or both of them even if you really wanted to, and you'll be happy to have another staff sage coming your way. I will say I think you get access to bolting earlier than you do blizzard, so there's something there too with the siege tome. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But I think both are fine. I think they are fairly equal. The only thing Soren has over Ileana is availability. A few more chapters in him, but I don't think there's as big a difference between them as people like to make it out to be. Mist. On hard mode, I think Mist is worth investing into. It's not hard to just heal stuff and then give her a promotion item to get her into Valkyrie, and she's fine. I mean, you're never going to want her to do much combat, but having a horse and a staff at the same time that make her probably the best healer in the game once promoted. Outside of one option later, but that other option comes so late that it hardly counts. Yeah, I think she's fine. I don't think there's any issue with training Mist on hard mode. All right, Rolf. Only if you love him. Which, don't get me wrong, my first playthroughs, like my early playthroughs of the game when I was brand new to Fire Emblem, playing it on easy and normal mode, I loved using Rolf. I would BXP dump him to the moon and back, and I would just have this funny little sniper, little booger head looking guy running around killing stuff. It was a grand old time. I loved it. I love the triangle attack. If you don't know, if you promote Rolf, Boyd, and Oscar all by a certain point in the game, and they all can use bows, they get a special triangle automatic crit attack thing together, and it's cute and stuff. Not super useful, but it is there. And Rolf needs to be trained to be able to be part of that, I guess. So, actually, I don't even know if he needs to promote to do it. Either way, only use him if you love him. He has the worst weapon type in the game. He comes in at Chapter 9 at level 1. Just abysmal. Just horrible stats. His Rolf's bow is supposed to like help him train up because it has really good accuracy and all that, but it deals like pitiful damage to everything. He is just not worth your time. There's another art. If you want a bow user, there's another bow unit that comes later that is worth your time, and we'll talk about that. But Rolf, horrible stats, horrible at his join time, requires too much to get going to be worth using, to be worth it. And then even if you do get him going and get his stats up to par and using like a higher weapon rank bow and stuff, he still is using a bow. His his enemy phase is going to be 0 in a game where enemy phasing is everything, because there's just so many enemies, man. So yeah, only if you love him. Which, don't get me wrong, I love Rolf quite a bit too. I have a soft spot for him, but he is not good. Marcia is great. Your first flyer. Granted, she only comes like 3 chapters before your next flyer or something like that. But that having a flyer is always good for rescue strats, getting to hard to reach spots, but also her combat solid. she's probably your best, the best person to be given the bonus experience to that you've accumulated over the course of the game at that point. If you want to actually just like stomp the game, you just load her up with the bonus experience, get her a bunch of stats, and let her fly around and kill stuff. There is the weakness to bows and the weakness to wind magic, but as mentioned before, it's only at 2 times effectiveness in this game rather than 3 times that we're used to in the I was gonna say in the GBA games, in some of the GBA games, and it makes it so she's pretty safe. And then you get an item that she can equip that just negates all that anyways, and you don't have to worry about it. So Marcia is insanely good, has lances, has flight, and comes at a good time to receive bonus experience and become a combat god. All right, Lethe. She's gonna go into filler. Lagoos in this game are rough, and it sucks because their reputation in Path of Radiance made it so people don't like them in Radiant Dawn as well, which is unfair. In Radiant Dawn, Lagoos are actually pretty solid, but that's for a different video. Lethe is fast when she's transformed. She'll deal good damage early on, but her growth is abysmal just because she's a Lagoos. They don't get experience fast. She's only transformed, for part of the map. She does start transform, so she doesn't fall behind early, but I think I kind of prefer the Mordecai approach where he transforms a few turns into the map. But when Lethe isn't transformed, all she's really capable of doing is shoving, and that's fine, I guess. That's a good filler trait to have. So early on, when you don't have a ton of units, she's a fine unit to slot in the meantime. Mordecai. I'm always happy to have Mordecai, if for no other reason that he comes with the smite skill, which is just a double shove. It shoves a unit 2 spaces. And if you were to give him a couple of items that boost his weight, the statue frag items, then he can have enough weight to just push like horses and like wyverns around too with smite, which is crazy. Crazy useful. I like Mordecai a lot. I think you throw the demi-band on him and he's a solid pusher. And then he also can tank for you a little bit if you need him to. Not much else to say, honestly. I think you're happy to have him when he's around. And I think the same goes for Volk. You're happy to have him. You're happy to have him on maps where, maybe there's some treasure chest. Maybe there's a staff you want to steal. You can steal staves, right? That's a thing. I'm not lying about that, am I? Why am I questioning whether or not you can steal things in this game? Probably because there's not a ton of stealables that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to steal that. You know what I mean? But I seem to recall stealing being a thing. Yeah, it is. Okay. So you can steal unequipped weapons and items. Okay, so really that just breaks down to like stealing like a physics staff here or there is probably what you're really aiming for, which is great. I don't know. I'm generally happy to have Volk on the map for those reasons. He's also surprisingly tanky for when he joins. Something to note. But when it comes, honestly, I should probably put him in good for a time just because he's only good for certain maps. But I'm going to put him in happy to have him because I like him. And stealing a physics staff here or there on certain maps can be nice. And I can't think of a single weapon that's worth stealing on an enemy because I feel like most enemies just have one weapon. But if you know of one, please tell me in the comments. I would love to hear about that. All right, Kieran. Definitely makes the game much easier to use Kieran. Kieran and Oscar actually have a support together, so they can just run around and be little horse friends and kill things together. He has axes at base, one of the 2 best weapon types, so he can just throw his hand axe at people on enemy phase, which is a grand old time. This top tier isn't necessarily ordered yet. I'm tempted to say Marcia above Oscar on hard mode, and I think I'm going to. But yeah, Kieran and Oscar fulfill similar roles. I think Kieran, if you're talking pure stats, I think Kieran will end up generally better than Oscar in my experience. But because of the strength more than anything. But I think Oscar joins earlier. It's a whole thing. I like them both, though. Very similar contribution to the team. Nephany is like Mia. If Mia had a weapon type that was worth using. On hard mode, I think investing in an Nephany isn't the end of the world. I think it's actually fine. She has Wrath at base. So you should get her into Wrath. Give her Vantage. I think is a solid build for her, and she'll do some silly things. On enemy phase, especially, you give her a forged javelin or something, and she might be able to put in some work. I think she's worth investing into if you want to. If you think having a playable soldier is like a fun novelty, which like at the time when this game came out, that was a fun novelty. Now it's whatever. But I'm tempted to throw her into filler. But I think on hard mode or in lower, she is worth investing into if you want to take the time to do it. Brom's your mom. I mean, fairly similar to Gatry. Just a little worse. Just a filler unit. Filler Lance general guy. I wouldn't. I'm tempted to put him only if you love him. At the top of only if you love him, because there's really no reason to use him. So I'll put him in the top of only if you love him. Zahark, I'm going to put him... initially, I planned to put him in filler. Because I don't think he's worth investing into. He has all the same problems as Mia, except slightly more strength. But he's still a sword user, But as a character, he is really cool. So, like, if you love him, definitely use him. He's cool. He has Adept, which is fine. It's like Soren, just like might surprise you and kill something he wasn't supposed to. But I think it's really is like only if you love him. To me, there's only one Myrmidon / Swordmaster that's actually worth deploying in the game. But of the ones that need train between Zyhark and Mia, he's definitely better. Not by much, but he is definitely better. Soth, we're going to throw him in good for a time. That time being, there are a couple maps where it's nice to have two thieves to split up. In particular, I think of the boat map. I think of chapter 14, where there's the three boats all stacked on top of each other in a row, and he can be good to get a couple of the chests before the ravens get to them. So you don't have to worry about killing them to get the chest. It is dangerous to have him on the map because he might just like freaking die, but he's good for that map, and then there might be a couple other ones where you might want an extra thief. His stats are horrendous. He forced on knives like Volk, which is awful. That's probably actually the worst weapon type in the game, but it hardly counts because who was even really trying to use knives? Yeah, I think Soth down there is fair. He's good for a few moments. Jill, another flyer. Wow, we love flyers. It's Flyer Emblem. Now we love flyers. Jill comes a few maps behind Marcia, so she is not going to be able to. She kind of misses out on that huge BXP dump unless you want to save it, but that makes those next few maps harder as a result. She doesn't need it as much as Marcia does, in my opinion, but she does appreciate it. But statistically, I feel like she will end up better than Marcia a lot of times, but it really doesn't matter that much. They're both good. They're both flyers. I think they both make the game much easier. Lances are good. Axes on promo is fine. Yeah, we like Jill. All right, Astrid. I'm going to put Astrid here. Not that it's not necessarily ordered up until there. I think Astrid is one of the best units to invest into. She has Paragon, so it's really easy. She's a Cavalier with good movement and Canto or Remove or whatever it's called these days. And she has bow access, which is normally not that great, but on a training project, I kind of like it. A good training project, not Rolf. On a good training project, in that she can hit someone with a bow and then run away and be safe. She can Canto away and be safe. I do quite like that. So I think Astrid is definitely worth investing into. Probably the best training project in the game. Because once she is trained up, she is solid. Especially if you have her, make sure she levels up with the Night Ward equipped so that she almost guarantees a speed level up every time she levels up. Also, if you're looking for a cheeky, easy way to level her up, just make sure she can deal 1 or 2 damage to the boss of chapter 15. And let her do her thing. Is that 15? The chapter, the desert map. I'm trying. Why do I think that's not chapter? No, it's chapter 15. I don't know what I was thinking. Of course, it's chapter 15. Which means the boat map I mentioned earlier is actually chapter 13. By the way. Anyways. Yeah, I think she's great. Definitely use Astrid if you want a training project. All right, Makalov. He's fine filler. He's a cavalier. He uses swords, so he doesn't reach like that full cavalier potential until promo. He doesn't have Paragon like Astrid does, so it's a little harder to justify using him or training him. But if you need an extra cavalier, he's not the worst. You throw him in there, promote him, get him axes or lances, and he'll just be another Kieran or another Oscar, I guess. But it's the problem is he joins at a time where it's hard to get. It's not as easy to get him there. Also, you probably just want to take Tempest off of him. Same with Boyd, by the way. Their skills are actively bad generally. So, but yeah, I think he's okay. If he started with axes or lances, I'd be more inclined to put him in worth investing. But the fact that he starts off with swords is enough to hold him back from that. Tormod. I think he's worth investing into. If nothing else, he has a really cool skill called Celerity. It just gives him +2 move. Only he can use it because you can't transfer skills, and there's no Celerity scroll in Path of Radiance. So he's just a high move mage. Comes a little late, but cool thing about him though is he can use Meteor at base. So even if I didn't put him in worth investing, he would at least go in good for a time, because chapter 22, him plus Khalil, which you get later, can kill the boss of that map, and you can beat it in 1 turn and just be done with it, and you get the bonus item because you didn't kill any priest. You missed out on like a speed wing and a couple other items, but I don't know. I think it's worthwhile for not having to hassle with it. Big fan. Big fan of that. But I think he's worth investing into. Promote him, get him a staff rank. It's fine enough. Similar to Soren and Ileana that way. But really, it's that Celerity skill that really pushes him over the edge into worth investing. Morim, he's Mordecai if Mordecai didn't have Smite. But to be fair, you could give Morim, you could give him Smite. That's an option, which isn't a bad idea if you want to use him. Comes with the Demi-Band, but you can just take it off of him and give it to like Mordecai or something if you want. Demi-Band allows the Olagoose to always be transformed at the cost of some stats. It's a solid item, but again, I think its best use is just to be on someone with Smite. So the answer is, I'm always happy to have Mordecai because he has Smite to begin with. I would be always happy to have Morim if he had Smite. So you have to like put the scroll into him. Otherwise, he's just filler. I think he's like filler that you deploy late in like chapter 17 or something. He has that kind of going for him. He has decent stats. Don't hate him. And honestly, he's probably better at smiting than Mordecai because Mordecai's going to be a lower level. So if you give him Smite, he'll probably be better than Mordecai. If you don't give him Smite, he's worse. Oh, whoops, there he is. It's that's the balancing act between them. All right, Stefan. I'm always happy to have Stefan. Always happy to have Stefan. He is a sword master, so he's sword locked, but he comes at level 8 promoted with the stats to show for it. Pretty solid stuff. Big fan of that. He's easy to use. You don't have to worry about him dying too much outside of his luck stat. I think he only has a luck stat of like 8. It's really low, whatever it is. So he is very likely to be crit, but I mean, that's just kind of the give and take of him. But I think he's a solid deploy as soon as you get him. And even to endgame, he can be useful if you want to. But He gets outclassed for sure. I definitely would put him probably at like the bottom of the happy to have them tier. All right, Danved or Devdon, I can't remember which one he is, but the mid game halberdier, orange halberdier guy. All of his points are good apparently. Anyways, solid filler. Neffany would be better than him most likely if you trained her, but he can slot in if you need him to. Lances are cool. Yeah. Tanith, another flyer, and who would have guessed? Makes the game much easier. Not only because of her combat and flying utility, but also because she has the craziest skill in the game, Reinforce, allowing her to just call 3 yellow units to the field that will just like distract enemies like crazy. Enemies love killing the yellow units. It is so useful. And she can do it twice. She can summon 6 dudes. Just 6 sacrificable guys. It is so insanely useful in this game. Yeah, Tanith is always good. Makes the game way easier, and it's so nice to have. Raisin makes the game much easier. Dancing and Fire Emblem was always good. Dancing being refreshing a unit, allowing them to have another turn. Transforming Raisin takes forever unless you just have a Lagoo Stone, which aren't super plentiful in this game. But there is a niche for, that's another niche for Soth, I guess, Soth and Volk. In Chapter 15, there are a lot of Lagoos on... wait, is that only on Maniac mode or is it also on hard mode? I'm trying to remember. On Maniac mode, at least, there are a lot of Lagoos on that map that have a special Lagoo Stone that only has 1 use. It's blue. But you can steal them if you're fast enough and give them to Raisin, which can be nice. I can't remember if they're on hard mode. Someone remind me in the comments. All right. Janaf and Ulki. These ones are hard for me to tier because they fly, and I do like that. But they're still Lagoos who have like transformation issues. Where'd you go? I think I'm going to put Janaf and happy to have them, as well as Ulki. Very similar units. They're both the birds. Transforming, flying is always good. And I think that's enough to put them there. The cool thing distinction about them is they can fly and shove. I'm pretty sure. That's a cool thing. Big fan of that. Their personal skills are okay. Plus 20 hit, or it's either plus 10 or plus 20 hit for Janaf is cool. And then plus 20 avoid for Ulki is also fun if you want to try and dodge tank with him. I don't remember what his affinity is, his support affinity. It's water. Water might give avoid, like half avoid. Doesn't give full avoid like Earth. But he doesn't support with anyone else that gives he also supports with Mordecai. Mordecai is water as well. Water, yeah, no, never mind. Water doesn't give avoid. So there's really no way to boost his avoid to a point where it's going to be reliable with his skill. So yeah, dodge tanking Ulki is just kind of like not super reliable, but it's a thing you could try, I guess. There's no way to like buff it up though, outside of his personal skill. Anyways, tangent aside, they're birds, they fly, they can rescue, they can shove. And their combat, when transformed, is good enough. It's fine. I'm always happy to have these two on the field. All right, Khalil. Khalil, I'm going to say on hard mode is decent filler. She has that niche of being able to help one turn the priest map solo, chapter 22. But outside of that, she is just going to be strictly worse than a trained Soren or Ileana, and most likely a trained Tormod by this point, just because she doesn't have staff access. She is forced to have tomes and knives because that's how they balance the pre-promoted sages in this game. But as far as damage output, she's just as good as the other mages more often than not. And her ranks are really good. That's something that you can't ignore in Path of Radiance. Raising your weapon ranks takes a long time. So having base ranks that are actually good is very nice. Turonio. filler. He has Resolve, which is cute. I don't feel like he really has the stats to take great advantage of it, being speed, being kind of low. But Turonio's good. He's a good filler. You can throw him in if you need to. His movement is also low. Same issues as Gatry and Braum, just around for less time, but also requires no investment at all. Ranulf. I don't know. Ranulf is a filler unit. He's a guy. He's like Leth. He's like Leth, but he has Mordecai's transformation gauge timing. So I think I like that a little better, but because a lot of times the first turn or two aren't super action packed. So he has that going for him. But I don't think he deserves to be in a different tier than Leth. Still a cat. When transformed, will deal still solid damage, but when he's not transformed, a total liability. Har. He's good in this game. Don't get me wrong. I'm always happy to deploy Har, but he is no Radiant Dawn Har, that's for sure. Comes with a good axe rank, high enough to use a Brave Axe. It comes with a Brave Axe, but again, you can just give that to someone else, like, I don't know, Kieran or Titania if you're feeling crazy. But Har is a solid flyer with decent stats for combat. Not much else to say about it. Joins pretty late, but you're happy to have him. Oh, Bastion. Here's the thing. Bastion and Khalil really shouldn't be that different, right? They shouldn't be. But Bastion joins late enough that it's kind of past the point where Khalil is also very like a standout at all in any form. So I kind of want to put him down here and only if you love them. That might be controversial to some degree, but that just feels right. Bastion, there's again if you train Soren or Ileana, there's no reason to use Bastion. He's gonna be stuck on knives instead of staff access, and he specializes in wind magic. I don't remember what his other base ranks are. Let me look really quick. They might be good. I might be silly here. They might be good. Yeah, he's B Fire and C Thunder. That's good enough to use all of the. I believe that's good enough to use all of the siege tomes. So that's pretty solid. That's a nice thing to have. His skill is hilarious. He has corrosion, which just corrosion lowers the enemy's weapon durability, which is hilarious. It's a hilarious skill. Almost pointless. There is some niche with like using him. He uses a siege tome on another enemy mage with a siege tome, and that like forces them to break their weapon if corrosion activates. So it's like a funny niche thing he can do, but it's not that good. And there's a chance it won't even activate. So yeah, I'm going to put him only if you love them. I know having him and Khalil separated that much seems kind of crazy, but their recruitment time makes a huge difference for me. Khalil joins at a time where her magic is good enough to contribute, and I feel like Bastion's kind of past that. All right. Lucia, only if you love her. She is Mia if you trained Mia, but didn't have to train Mia, but also still joined so late that she's still horrendous. Yeah, she's bad. She also has the parody skill, which is a funny skill in this game. Parody's really good in Radiant Dawn for the final map. But in this game, parody is kind of a joke. I just want to get the skill description right so I don't lie to you guys. Parody negates both the player and enemy support and terrain bonuses as well as battle skills. And it's always active. The reason it's better in Radiant Dawn is because it's not always active and you can choose when to use it. But the thing that kills me is that the support player and enemy supports. So she just gets no support bonuses when she has parody. The terrain bonuses could be nice, I guess, if a boss is like on like a fort or something. Do they get? I don't even know if they get benefits on forts in this game. Anyways, Lucia is a joke of a character. No reason to use her. All right, Joffrey, good old Jeff, solid filler unit. He has Paragon, so if he's, for whatever reason, you feel like he's under leveled, he can catch up. But he comes fairly high leveled. Can use the Brave Lance at base, which is cool. But I prefer just to hand that to Oscar as soon as I get it, or Marcia. Granted, he is a solid, probably the best filler unit of this crew. Another Paladin, high movement, Canto, all those things. But he will never be. I shouldn't say never. He's most likely not going to be as good as your trained Oscar or Kieran. So if you are dying to have another Cavalier, which is never a bad thing in Path of Radiance, deploy him. Otherwise, he's not super necessary. But I do prefer him over every other unit in filler so far. Largo. I do like Largo. I think he's a fine filler unit. His stats aren't super impressive. I need to pull them up really quick so I don't lie to you guys. Because he's not a character I use a ton. 21 strength at base is fine. 20 speed is okay as well. His defense is only 10. I guess, again, that's supposed to be made up by his 52 HP. But, yeah, defense of 10 is pretty unforgivable this late in the game, if you ask me. He has a little bit of room to grow, I guess, but, yeah. He is a rough person to have out there, I guess. He's going to die pretty easy. But, hey, if you didn't train up Boyd and you want a foot-locked axe guy, he's here. He's here for you. I actually like him more in Maniac mode, but I'll get to that. My opinions between the characters on hard mode and Maniac mode might not seem intuitive, but I'll explain my differences when we get there. Alencia, where did I put her earlier? Okay, so I already did the hard mode tier list, by the way. I just was looking at, have my reference to the side. I do have Alencia in filler tier. If you want a flying healer, deploy her. She is force deployed on 26, which is actually a liability on Maniac mode. Hard mode, not as big of an issue. But on Maniac mode, totally a liability to deploy her. Really, all you have her for is to be a flying staff unit. So she's like a direct upgrade to Mist, really. Being that she flies instead of just has a horse. Her combat is basically nothing. She has a really cool sword, so if you get her strength to a point where she can deal damage, like a good amount of damage, then she could be really fun to use, because a midi is just a brave weapon that never breaks. But the work to get her there is not worth it. She is solid filler, though, as a healer. All right, our last 5 units are all going to go into good for a time, because it's hard for me to tier these units that are only around for 1 or 2 maps or less. I think Ina and Nasir are both fine. Whichever one you get, you could build them with skills. Like you could do like the Wrath Resolve thing with Ina or Nasir to make the final map a little easier, or to help kill Ashnard. Tabarn is probably the best of the 3 Lugu's Royals, in my opinion. I know there's some people that will say Gifka is better because of his damage output, but the flight of Tabarn is crazy good. Naysal is probably the worst of those 3, of these 3 Royals you can pick from. He is the fastest, so I think he doubles Ashnard. I don't know if the other 2 do when he's berserked. So you have that going for him, but other than that, Tabarn is just the better pick. So yeah, there's my hard mode tier list. I feel like it's fairly standard to what people think and agree on with this game. There's a lot of middling units in Tellius. A lot of just kind of okay characters. That's why filler is the biggest tier, followed by the worth investing. But this is for hard mode. Now, if you want to try Maniac mode, I'm going to give you a few specific strategies in Maniac mode that make the game a lot easier. So I'm going to pull up the tier list. Here we go. Boom. This is Maniac mode. The first thing you'll notice is that the makes the game much easier tier is basically the same characters. And by basically I mean it is. But they are shifted around, and that is on purpose. I think Oscar is the best character in the game. Oscar's survivability is insane. So the easiest way to beat Maniac mode is to have Oscar and Ike have a full support, a rank support, Give Oscar Soul, which can activate at close range and at 2 range. And then have him and Ike just run around together. It may not be the fastest way, but it is the easiest way. And they could, if you don't run out of weapon uses, they could solo most maps. And then endgame, once Ike gets Ragnall and Wrath Resolve, is the easiest way to beat the game. They will just solo the final map together. If for no other reason, then Ike will solo the map by himself with the extra avoid from Oscar. And again, I know dodge tanking by itself isn't good enough, but Oscar has great defense. He has access to Soul, which will heal him. And plus the dodge tanking makes him very, very good. And he is good from start to finish. He's always a solid character. Even in like chapter 2, when you have to wait for Titania to show up, he is your most defensive unit and is able to handle like the whole first group of enemies by himself for a turn or two, which is so useful considering your other units are Boyd, Ike, and Riss, who are all squishy. So he and then from there he just continues to improve more and more and more until he surpasses Titania, and then he even goes farther beyond that. And then after him, I have Kieran. I think Oscar and Kieran should definitely have a B support. If for whatever reason you don't want to do the Oscar Ike A support strategy, which again I think is the easiest way to beat the game, you definitely want Oscar Kieran A support so they can just run around and dodge things together. The 1-2 range, again, same with Oscar. The 1-2 range is so good and important on Maniac mode because there's so many enemies, and player phasing them is just it's not the way, man. You want to be able to enemy phase as much as possible, and Oscar and Kieran can both do that with their lance and axe access. Titania goes below them just because she falls off a little earlier, but she is still the best unit essentially up until Oscar promotes. Oscar and Kieran promote, then they're probably better than her, but she is still going to be so important for the early game. Like, you can't be afraid just to give her kills. Especially looking at like chapter 8, you're just going to need her to choke, just to have her choke the entire, either the bottom or the right side all by herself, and just set it and forget it, and then everyone else is doing everything else. She is that good. It's incredible, necessary for the early game. You'll also maybe notice in this top tier, I did put Jill above Marcia. I think Jill's extra bulk is worth mentioning and just barely puts her ahead of Marcia. Both are still great. I think a lot of people on the hard mode tier list would actually, have Marcia above Oscar and Kieran. I think that's how a lot of people feel, and I think that some people still say that for Maniac mode. But I prefer, I feel like her defenses make her a little less safe to have running around, which then limits why she's so good on hard mode, is her high movement and mobility with flying. Tanith is here for the same reasons. Raisin is here for the same reasons. It's still great. Trying to look at differences. The mages, Soren and Ileana, both get bumped up to happy to have them. And that is simply because Maniac mode is Japanese exclusive, and the Japanese versions of Path of Radiance has a very, very easy to execute and exploit glitch that makes it so they will critically hit every single attack. It's called the crit underflow glitch. Just Google it. Just a Fire Emblem Path of Radiance crit underflow glitch. It'll pop up. But essentially, you forge a tome. You take a tome that has crit. The Thunder Tome has 5 crit at base. You forge it to have 0 crit. It causes it to underflow, and then it will have 255 crit. So they will crit every single time they attack with that forged weapon. You combo that with maybe some bonus experience, and then also a vantage scroll, so they can always attack first. And they will just kill things before they get attacked at 1 or 2 range. They are still incredibly squishy and susceptible to death, but I'm always happy to have the auto crit. If nothing else, they are like a guaranteed player phase delete button. and when built correctly are a solid enemy phaser. So I think either of these two characters, I think you only want to do it with one of them. I think having two is a little hard to maintain with the forges, because there are other characters that want forges. You want forged javelins for Oscar, forged hand axes for Kieran and the like, but they are definitely solid for that. I moved Khalil up into happy to have them because the siege magic is really nice to have on Maniac, and also just having another solid damage dealer is real that you don't have to train, because experience is more needy in Maniac mode. There's less bonus experience in particular, so having just another plug and play mage that can come in and deal solid damage in Khalil is very nice. Same reason that Joffrey is up here, up into happy to have them. Moved from filler, I believe is where I had him. Had him in filler, top of filler on the hard mode tier list. I think throwing him into happy to have him is fair, just because he has really good combat and you didn't have to train him at all. And that's just because, again, training units is so much harder on this difficulty. Other changes, a lot of units that were in worth investing on the hard mode tier list got moved down to filler. Only keeping Ike, Astrid, and Tormod here. Ike is for the same reasons, and Maniac even exacerbates this in that he is the way to beat the last two maps of the game. Give him Wrath Resolve with Ragnar and an Oscar support, and he will win the game. Astrid, once promoted, again, especially if you make sure to keep the Night Ward on her when she levels up, and make sure to pass that around, by the way, for level ups, because it gives a buff to your speed growth. But once she promotes, she will be able to keep up with the likes of Oscar and Kieran, especially defensively. Her offense will lag behind because she'll have to grind up an axe or a lance rank. Probably an axe rank if you ask me. But she's still... And also bows do have a niche in that there are some scary flyers later on, especially in Maniac. And Tormod, he has the thing I said earlier about being able to use siege magic at base. Let me make sure I'm not lying to you about that. I don't know why I'm questioning it. It's like I know it, but then I say it in a video and I'm like, is that correct? I'm pretty sure it's correct. Yeah, he has sea fire, and let me double check that fire. Yeah, Meteor's C rank. Okay, just want to double check so I didn't lie to you guys. But yeah, he has Meteor at base that you can use. +2 move is awesome. And you can also do the crit underflow glitch as well with him if you want to. But I think he's definitely worth investing into. Once invested into, he'll be able to keep up with these guys up here. And as far as the units that were in worth investing that I moved down into filler, it's just because their output doesn't keep up with the difficulty of the game like they do on hard mode. And aside from that, I don't think I changed that much. I think I moved, let me see, did I move anyone out of Only If You Love Them? I moved Bastion out of Only If You Love Them into filler for the same reason that I moved Khalil up, just because having that another unit you don't need to train is just nice. Having a unit you don't need to train at all that you can slot in and deal damage is a very valuable thing on Maniac mode, especially if you're doing some sort of Iron Man style run where you're letting people die. Bastion is solid filler there. Outside of that, I don't think I changed. I think everything else doesn't really need to be explained. So yeah, there's my tier list. Here's the hard mode tier list again. I'll show you again for those who skipped to the end of the video. Here is the Maniac mode tier list for those who skipped to the end of the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Tell me why I'm wrong. Yeah, if you say I'm wrong, just tell me why I'm wrong. I don't like being told I'm wrong. No one does. I'm just kidding. I don't really care. But I like reading other people's perspectives is what I'm trying to say. So tell me why I'm wrong, not just that I am wrong. Unless you want to be funny and just say, wow, you're stupid and wrong. I might get a giggle. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. This has been Adam with FED. Make sure to like the video if you made it this far. If you made it this far, come on. You got to like the video. And if you made it this far and you haven't subscribed, just click the button. It's been a long time since I've posted. I had to come out of the woodworks to get this Path of Radiance tier listing shenanigans back in order for you guys. Please subscribe. And I will catch you next time.